sweet bouquet of roses. Sweet and cherry and just excellent with a slight touch of velvet undertones. Excellent aroma. The bouquet is superb. Yes, this is very nice. Very nice. An excellent blend of rushing cherry plum with a faint hint of, do I taste pepper spice in the end? Very intense and fulfilling flavor, and then a smooth finish afterwards. Nice and velvet on the tongue. Huh. Excuse me, ma'am, where does this wine come from?
That there wine's from North Carolina.
North Carolina? Huh. I never even knew North Carolina produced wine. I must say, I've always known this state to be a beautiful state, but I did not know we had such exquisite wine here. Guess you discover something new every day, don't you? To you about wine growing in the state of North Carolina. Before we get into growing wine in North Carolina, though, I want you to understand some of the history behind mankind growing grapes and turning it into wine. It's real easy to say that discovering wine was an accident, because probably someone had some rotten grapes and accidentally drank some rotten grape juice and found that it made them feel quite pleasant and tasted all right. And that is pretty much understood to be the way that wine was first invented. Now, the first cultivation of grapes to turn into wine was found in 6000 to 4000 BC, right here on the southern banks of the Caspian Sea in what was Mesopotamia and now modern-day Iran. They then were found next to have journeyed over to Egypt, where in 2700 BC, hieroglyphics found in a tomb in Egypt where they showed that like the royalty and the aristocrats and the priests all drank wine. The common people drank beer, and wine was more reserved for the important people in society, quote unquote. Then, over another 1,000 years, it probably migrated through Turkey and across the Mediterranean Sea and was found in Greece in 1600 BC. Greece began the wine culture in Europe, but at some point the Roman Empire got their hands on wine, and about 1000 BC they put a ton of effort into cultivating and creating wine throughout all of Europe, everywhere where they conquered. So it's easy to say that the Roman Empire is who truly created the wine culture in Europe. And that was started around 1000 BC. And then, in the 16th century, the settlers from London traveled across the Atlantic Ocean and landed in the southeast and eastern side of the what later became the United States. And it was during this time that wine cultivation of grapes was brought to the New World. So that means it took almost 7,500 years for grape cultivation for wine to get from the southern banks of the Caspian Sea to the eastern banks of what later became North America. So in about 1584, an Englishman by the name of Sir Walter Raleigh sailed across the Atlantic Ocean, and he landed in the Barrier Islands off of North Carolina, what's now known as the Outer Banks. He specifically landed on an island named Roanoke Island, and there he found an abundance of native wild grapes growing. There were so many grapes that he wrote back to England of his explorations of the North Carolina coast. They were so full of grapes that the very beating and surge of the sea were upon them. This quote was found on Visit NC Wine's website. While on Roanoke Island and exploring the Outer Banks, Sir Walter Raleigh and his men discovered what would later be known to be called the mother vine. The mother vine, a native muscadine vine, is pretty much known to be the oldest grapevine in the United States. It's humongous. No one even knows how old it is. It has a 2-foot thick trunk, and the vines of the plant travel all over an entire acre of land. We're talking about the size of a professional football field. One vine. It was cuttings from this vine Sir Walter Raleigh took to the mainlands and established vineyard growing in North Carolina. He started planting just fields and fields of these muscadine wild native grapes and making wine from them. And this is happening in the late 1500s. At the turn of the 19th century, this had caught on so much that North Carolina was the #1 producing and exporting wine state in the United States. So that's a big statement for North Carolina, considering, you know, we're just a small little state here on the East Coast, and everything was looking great for the industry to flourish and become one of the biggest things going for North Carolina. That was until the unexpected happened. Prohibition swept the country in 1919. The sale and drinking of alcohol became illegal throughout the United States, and this time frame destroyed the once prominent vineyard culture in North Carolina and across the United States. It was almost impossible to hide a vineyard and a whole cellar, so it was pretty hard to bootleg wine. Most people went to using moonshine and stills hidden up in the woods. So 90% of the vineyards in North Carolina during this time were either dug up or left to grow wild, which once a vineyard's grown wild for 3 or 4 years, it's impossible to get it back to growing status. Religious supporters of Prohibition even went as far as to say that references of wine into the Bible were actually for grape juice, not for wine. Prohibition was a very, very abrupt law change and saw many destructions, many things that hurt the economy of North Carolina and the United States.
Did you hear? They ended Prohibition! We can drink again! Yeah! Woo! Alright! Yeah!
Woohoo!
The federal government ended Prohibition in 1933 to the enthusiastic applause of the American people and the American wine-producing community. Unfortunately, North Carolina's wine production has took a long time to get started again, and but it is growing and flourishing once again here in the state. And growers are not just growing on the southeastern coast; they have expanded into the Piedmont region and also into the mountain regions. Not to mention, they've also started growing more European viniferous varieties and also French hybrid grapes. On this map here, on Visit North Carolina, shows how many wineries are in North Carolina right now. Right now, North Carolina has over 120 wineries and over 400 acres of grapes planted. This right here symbolizes all the wineries in the coastal region. These wineries will be growing more native muscadine grapes, still the original ones of the North Carolina wine industry. And then, as you can see over here in the mountainous region, there's a budding little vineyard culture starting to happen. This is where I have my grapes growing, and these growers are focusing more on cooler climate grapes, mainly French hybrid varieties and also some European viniferous varieties, basically due to the colder climates we find in the mountains. And then in the Piedmont, as you can see, this is where the most established aspect of the vineyard culture in North Carolina is. Here they are growing European varieties, they are growing French hybrid varieties and native varieties, all growing very well in the warm climates of the Piedmont region. The area to the north up here, which is known as the Yadkin Valley, is probably the most densely populated grape growing region in North Carolina. And then also in the center of the state, over near Raleigh, you have the Haw River Valley, and it's also a very prominent area of grape growth. And North Carolina is no longer the #1 wine producing state in the United States. Of course, California is. But we are the 9th producing state in the United States. And our vineyards have grown from 400 acres to 800 acres in just 10 years. There has also been an increase in wineries 5 times. That's from 20 wineries just 10 years ago to 120 today. This is a significant growth in the North Carolina wine industry.